Good evening. It is time for today's tax talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. A lot of my clients been calling. Had a call today from someone from Korea regarding their passports because the IRS is sending out a lot of these. I think they're CP508C notices. If you look in the top right hand corner, there's a notice number CP508C. This is about passport revocation. Remember, today is Thursday, March 3rd, year of our Lord 2022, and we're going to talk about your passport being revoked by the IRS. Won't you join us? Okay, so here's the thing. This is what's going on. Again, I get a lot of calls about this because the IRS sends all this stuff out automatically. And so everybody's getting the same notice, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls. Here's another thing, though. Even my clients, they don't send this notice to your power of attorney, with the third-party authorized third party, your attorney. They don't send it to me. I don't get it. They send it directly to you. And this is from the IRS, but it's alerting the State Department because that's who issues passports. I call this the Chicagoization of our federal government. It happened in 2015 with the highways bill. We'll talk a little bit about that. And part of the highways bill, they put this provision in there about going after people who owe the IRS through collection, right? So if you owe the IRS money, we're going to collect it from you. Well, how can we collect more money from people? Well, we'll take away your passport. And so that's what they proposed to do in 2015. It was took a couple years for them to implement the program. It started at $50,000. I think today it's at $55,000. If you owe $55,000 or more, well, let's look at the IRS, what the IRS says. So this revocation or denial of passport in case of certain unpaid taxes. Again, this happened in 2015. They passed the law. If you have seriously delinquent tax debt, the law authorizes the IRS to certify that the debt to the State Department for action. That doesn't make any sense. The State Department generally will not issue a passport to you after receiving certification from the IRS. The State Department may deny your passport application or revoke your current passport. If you're overseas, the State Department may issue a limited validity passport good for direct return to the United States. So again, I had a client today from Korea. And they called and they're having this problem. In Korea, your passport is also tied to your visa there. So if you don't have a valid passport, you don't have a valid visa there in Korea. And that means you can't work. And you can't come home because you don't have a valid passport. It gets very hairy and people get very much afraid. What tax debt does the IRS certify to the state? The IRS certifies seriously delinquent tax debt to the State Department. Seriously delinquent tax debt is an individual's unpaid, legally enforceable federal tax debt, including interest and penalties, totaling more than $55,000 adjusted yearly for inflation. Since they sent you a notice of federal tax lien has been filed and all administrative remedies under the law have lapsed and have been exhausted, or a levy has been issued. What tax debt does the IRS not certify? I'm not going to get into this because there looks like a long list. It ain't a long list. Most tax debt. How it works. Certification to the state. The IRS will send a notice CP508 an installment agreement with the IRS. It might take longer than that. Unfortunately, that's true. It keeps going in and out, so I apologize for that. I use this every day, and it doesn't do that. Almost never. Okay, so referral for a revoked passport, judicial review for certification. What to do? What do you think the remedy is to the IRS if they do this to you? Pay them. Payment of taxes. If you can't pay for the full amount you owe, you can make alternative payment arrangements such as a payment plan or an offer in compromise to have your certification reversed. If you disagree with the tax amount or the certification was made in error, you could contact the phone number of the CP508C, and there's the number there. If you're already paid the tax debt, please send proof of that payment to the address on the notice of CP508C. Again, it's going to take a lot longer than 90 days for this. So the department will notify you in writing if the State Department denies your U.S. passport application or revokes your U.S. passport. So first you get the notice from the IRS, and then they're going to send you notice from the State Department. So here's on the State Department's website what they say. Passport seriously delinquent tax debt. If you have been certified to the Department of State by the Secretary of the Treasury as having a seriously delinquent tax debt, you cannot be issued a U.S. passport, and your current U.S. passport may be revoked. If you are overseas, you may be eligible for a limited passport good for direct return to the United States. We suggest that if you have a seriously delinquent tax debt, you contact the IRS to resolve your debt before applying for a passport. If you do not resolve your tax issues before applying for the passport, your application will be delayed or denied. If you are seriously delinquent tax debt and have already applied for the new U.S. passport, we cannot issue a new passport to you until you have resolved your tax issues with the IRS. I don't know, but I'm going to check with this before I go anywhere if I owe the IRS money. Remember, it's $55,000 or over. So if I just owe, so here's a article that I pulled up. It's dated August 2019, and this is when the IRS started issuing these. So again, this was passed in 2015, but it wasn't until 2018-19 that they started doing this. So if you owe the IRS more than $52,000, and again now it's $55,000, you may be able to get a new passport, or you may not be able to get a new passport or renew your existing one, or you might simply be revoked, whether you're at home or abroad. The IRS has notified more than 400,000 taxpayers that their passports are at risk of since the program began. The IRS is finally ready to make good on its threats to strip U.S. passports from Americans who owe more than $52,000 in overdue taxes. The tax collector and the State Department are escalating enforcement of the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act. Now, doesn't that make sense that there's a Fixing America's Surface, that they would put the passport in there? Of course, it doesn't make sense. It's a way to offset the cost of this program. They say, see, we're going to raise money by taking someone's passport, and that will offset some of the money that we're going to spend. And I don't think that's really relevant. I mean, I think it's unrelated, in my opinion. This law enables them to deny passport applications or revoke existing passports due to outstanding debts. This is one of those gimmicks that you see in all of these bills that they say this is how they're paying for stuff. The enforcement effect, which began February 2018 for debts over $51,000 or higher, has thus far covered applications for new or renewed passports. So on 18, they only did new or renewed. But now they start revoking existing passports. The higher threshold of $52,000. Okay. Now the IRS will actively begin referring unresolved cases to the State Department for potential revocation. IRS spokesman said the State Department denies passport applications or revokes existing passports based on information it receives from the IRS. The $52,000, again now $55,000, must qualify as legally enforceable. Well, we already read that. We know what the rules are. The agency issued a press release earlier this week reminding delinquent taxpayers of the law's provisions. Our goal was to remind people that this program has been in operation, but additionally that it is our intention to begin referring cases to the U.S. Department of State for passport revocation. The government agency has notified more than 400,000 taxpayers that their passports are at risk since the program began. As a result of these notices, the IRS has received $11.5 million as of the end of June 2018 from 220 individuals. About 1,400 more people have entered into payment agreements as of that date. More recent. So this is how they say they pay for things. most of those they're going to recover most of that money anyway. So all it does is it may, I should say, increase, when the IRS is going to get that money. But the IRS is going to get the money because they have a lot of other powers to get the money. Taxpayers at risk of having their passport revoked will also receive a letter informing them of the impending referral to the State Department. They will receive before the IRS refers a case from the revocation. If there's a message here, it's that taxpayers who have a tax debt are encouraged to contact the IRS promptly to resolve their tax debt and avoid the possible revocation of their passport. This attorney for the immigration law firm said that's critical, especially given the 30-day window within which debtors may respond. Our biggest concern as an international firm is that a client who is overseas will get hit with one of these letters, never see it, and have their passports canceled. It can easily happen that a client is returning to the U.S., finds out that at the border that their passport is canceled, and the only way to get it back is to settle the debt. But that can take months, if not years. Meanwhile, your family is overseas. Kevin McKeegan, co-founder, very negative impact for expats. So if you're living overseas, of course your passport is your ticket home. Most American citizens don't have a passport, but all expats do, so it could be impacting expats disproportionately. Expatriates who are working overseas likely have a visa or work permit in their passports. Those visas or work permits will likely continue to be valid even if the passport is not. As I mentioned, in Korea, it turns out, according to my clients, it is not valid if they do not have a valid passport. You'll have to get this resolved, but it's unlikely you'll be thrown out of the country if you're an expat. But if you're an expat and like in Korea and they revoke my visa, I can't work there, and I can't come home. I'm kind of in a pickle, aren't I? Not included in the enforcement action are taxpayers who are paying for their debt through an IRS installment agreement, offers in compromise with the IRS, or a settlement with the Justice Department, have requested a collection due process hearing about a levy, or have had the collection of the debt suspended because they requested innocent spouse relief. Other taxpayers who will not be affected include those who are in bankruptcy, are victims of tax-related identity theft, have hardships that have led the IRS to deem the debt currently not collectible. So if I can't pay them and I can prove it, they'll put me in currently not collectible status. That will resolve this, at least for a time. Reside in a federal disaster area, have put in a request to the IRS for an installment agreement, are in the process of negotiating with the IRS to pay a lesser amount than what is owed, and who have had the IRS accept the adjustment they offered. You can't simply put an IRS installment agreement offer out there. They have to accept it. Taxpayers serving in military combat zones are also not affected. If you receive a notice or a letter from the IRS in the mail, be sure to check if it is mistakes or fraud. My first piece of advice would go, okay, you got the letter. Now make sure it's accurate. If it's not accurate, get on the phone with the IRS and explain why. But I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, because if you have a ripe audience for it, this article. So again, this is a very important aspect. If you travel and you have an IRS debt, I wouldn't want to get out of the country and have my passport revoked and find out at the coming back home. That doesn't make sense. I wouldn't want to do that. So you want to get this resolved, and you want to get it resolved as soon as you can. If I don't travel overseas, I don't care. It doesn't really affect me. But again, this is one of the things, is what we do here in Illinois is, right, all your license are subject to revocation if you owe the state of Illinois any money. And so remember now, Barack Obama was the president of the United States in 2015. He took this concept with him, in my opinion, and that's where we are. So, but again, it's also a gimmick to offset some of the cost of improve. So look, we're going to spend $100 million, and of course now we never spend $100 million. It's always $1 billion or $1 trillion now. But we're going to spend $100 million, and how are we going to pay for it? We're going to pay for it by this gimmick, which is the IRS passport cancellation, and that offsets some of our costs. And so when it goes to the Congressional Budget Office, they score it, and then they say, well, here you're spending $100 million, but you're bringing in $100 million, so it's neutral. It doesn't raise the deficit. Now, most of the time, they don't get the money that they're projecting from this money making, like this gimmick, but they always spend the money. And so it always is deficit, in my opinion. Anyway, that's where we are. I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. Now, tomorrow we have our Watch Talk Radio podcast. We're going to be we have Attorney Cohen tomorrow, and we're going to be on about 2:00 in the afternoon. So join us in all these venues. We're going to be streaming live. So join us, won't you? We appreciate that. And again, in the meantime, we're going to ask you to like and subscribe. Share it with your friends and family. We need it. I'm asking you to do that because we need to get this information out there. Nobody else talks about taxes every day like that in the tax. And remember, the core of all news is really about taxes. So we're going to ask you to like and subscribe. They'll tell you that what do you do first thing? If you get one of these, first thing you do, get a copy of my book. Deal with your IRS problem today. Go to freeirsbook.com. Freeirsbook.com. Get a copy of the book. Doesn't cost anything. Freeirsbook.com. We will ask you to pay a small shipping and handling fee. It's $9.95 or something like that. Yesterday I sent out a book. My cost was $14 to send it. Doesn't include the book, doesn't cost my time, all of that other stuff. It was $14 to ship it because it was shipping to Arizona. Okay, so oftentimes it doesn't even cover the shipping, but it helps. So that's what we ask you to do. Remember, join us here every evening for today's Tax Talk, and we'll catch you remember tomorrow 2:00 on watchtalkradio.com and other venues, and next Monday for today's Tax Talk. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again on another time. Out.